Thank you. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Harshal Doshi, and I represent a company called DataBahn. And over the course of the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'm here to help you reduce your SIM and security operations cost by 50%, right? And before I do that, a couple of data points, and I would like to congratulate our very own NPCI for making sure that UPI has now surpassed Visa in terms of the number of financial transactions. So we are officially the world's largest financial transaction producers. I think they deserve a huge round of applause. So, you know, when you look at success stories like these, right? It actually fills our heart with a lot of gratitude, with a lot of pride that India is doing so great in terms of digital transactions, in terms of data in general. And when I was researching a little bit about it, I figured that India is actually producing 20% of world's entire digital data, which means that, you know, our population of 1.4 billion, right, is generating more data than any other country in the world, right? And this is something to be really proud of. But at the same time, I think we have a paradox here, that while India has surpassed Japan in terms of the GDP, our per capita GDP is still one of the lowest in the world, right? Now you would wonder, why am I giving you this statistic, right? As custodians of data, as custodians of cybersecurity in your own organizations, I think it puts you in a very difficult spot, that while you are generating so much data, right, for your own organizations, for the country, for the people of this country, there is still a huge cost burden on you. That how do I really manage so much data when it comes to security operations, when it comes to observability, when it comes to any data function in your organization, right? And that is where DataBahn comes in. So we are a data pipelining company which helps you to cut down the noise of whatever data you're generating and only send the relevant data to your big data analytics platform. Now let me just quantify this a little bit more. As CISOs and CIOs, I think one of the biggest problems that CISOs face today, okay, you know, running their security operations, is that how do I collect all this diverse information from my heterogeneous IT infrastructure to get it to my SIM, right? That is the first challenge. Second is that, like I mentioned, data is exploding at the rate of 30 to 35% every year, but your budgets are not. So you're having to ingest more and more data in your SIM, but you're not having enough budgets to run your security operations. So how do you really manage that kind of volumes to be ingested into your platforms? And of course, there are too many data engineering challenges in terms of parser creation, in terms of enrichment logic creation, so on and so forth, right? So now when you combine all this, running your security operations today is becoming a very expensive and a very unpredictable cost kind of a scenario for CISOs today, right? And this is what DataBahn is actually solving, right? And some of our research actually shows that more than 60% of the logs or the events that you are ingesting in your SIM today is actually useless, which means that it is not used in any correlation rules, it is not used in any threat hunting, it is not used in any compliance reporting. But you're still collecting it, you're still storing it, you're still running analytics on it, and you're still paying a lot of expensive SIM license fees for it, right? And that is one of the biggest challenges that CISOs have mentioned to us, that, you know, sometimes what happens is because of the capacity overutilization, they are not able to bring in the right sources into the SIM, and you know, not able to get the full visibility of events and logs into their organizations, right? And one other problem which happens in the SIM world is the vendor lock-in. So once you start using a SIM solution, it kind of becomes you know, a sticky proposition for you, where you're not able to change the solution because of the proprietary nature of storing the data, right? So how does DataBahn help, right? So we are not a SIM solution. I'd just like to kind of clarify here, we are not a SIM solution. We are actually a data pipeline solution. We sit before your big data solutions like your SIM and observability, and collect, become the first point of collection of your data, and only send the relevant data to your big data analytics platforms and SIM platforms, so that you optimize the ingestion cost in your SIM, and everything else all the noise, you send it to a big data or a cheap storage so that you're compliant from a retention perspective. At the same time, your SIM license costs are maintained at a very optimum level, right? So the obvious question is, how does Databan as a data pipelining solution understand what is important and what is not, right? So a little bit history here. Our founders have a collective experience of about 100 years in threat research. So what we've done is that our policy framework is mapped with the MITRE framework, which means that we understand which are the events of importance as far as security is concerned, and also we look at your SIM configuration and understand which are the events of importance, and we don't touch those events. Everything else we filter out and send it to a long-term storage, right? And while we do that, our AI engine kicks in and we automate a lot of your data engineering, right? I'm sure because you're running your security operations in-house, data engineering is a big problem in security operations. Now, what do I mean by that? Whenever a data source changes its log format, or whenever there's a new data source, you have to keep writing parsers, you have to keep updating your parsers just to bring the right data in and just to make sense out of that data, right? So what we've done is that using our agentic AI capability called Cruise, we now don't have to depend on humans to write any parsers. The moment you get the data in, it builds its own parsers, it updates its own parsers, so that you don't have to worry about that manual data engineering effort. So we kind of optimize your data engineering effort by over 80%, right? So what we are here to do is guarantee a minimum 50% reduction in your security operations, right? So for example, if you're spending $1 million to run your security operations, whether it's in terms of license, human resources, processes, so on and so forth, Databan can guarantee a minimum 50% reduction in that particular cost, right? And visually, this is how it looks like, right? I'm not too sure whether it's clearly visible or not because of the pixelation, but this is the squid diagram, as we say. On the left-hand side, you have your data sources, and then the circle is Databan, where we enrich, denoise, filter, we transform, we normalize the data, and only send the specific information to your SIM, and everything goes to your cold storage. And for example, in the future, you have any requirement of sending that cold storage data from a forensics or audit requirement to your SIM, you can replay that to your SIM as well, right? So just to kind of quantify the value that we bring in here, right? About 400 plus integrations out of the box already, right? Minimum 50% reduction in your log volume, 80% automation in your manual data engineering, and the latest kid on the block, which is Data Reef, and I'm going to speak a little bit about it now. I'm sure we all have heard about data lakes and data oceans, right? Databan is the first organization which has built industry's first data reef. Now, if you look at the concept of a reef, it is a very concentrated area where you have the best aquatic life, the best corals, so on and so forth. And to find them, you don't have to dive deep into the ocean or deep into the lake. It's basically the collection of the best possible in the ocean, right? So what we've done in the data world is that because we understand which is the right data and which is not, we've built industry's first data reef so that your search queries, your threat hunting queries become super optimal, right? SIM companies have started charging not only for ingestion of data, but they've also started charging you for searching the data, right? So what we do is that using Data Reef, we help you optimize that threat hunting and search query optimization as well, so that overall we give you 90% more improvement in the visibility of the most important data in your organization, right? And this is how Reef works, where in the agentic AI world, there is this new concept called MCP, Model Context Protocol, where you don't have to bring data into a centralized location to search. We actually enable federated search using our MCP on the Reef so that you can keep the data where it is and still perform a federated search using agentic AI MCP capability, right? So I've already spoken about all of these to you, and that's all the time I had, and I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any, and I'll be around if you have any questions. But I've been Harshal Doshi. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.